to all of you to our second event this year for Elizabeth's Open Question Conversations. Her teaching theme this year is Bodhicitta, Burning with Love in a World We Can't Fix. Today, we will have a special time with Elizabeth Mattis Namgyel and Jetsunma Tenzin Palmo on the perfection of wisdom. Jetsuma Tenzin Palmo was born in 1943 and is a bhikshuni in the Drupa lineage of the Kagyu school of Tibetan Buddhism. She's an author, teacher, and founder of the Dongyu Gatsal Ling Nunnery in Himachal Pradesh, India. She's best known for having spent 12 years living in a remote cave in the Himalayas, 3 of these years in a strict meditation retreat. Elizabeth founded the education nonprofit, the Middle Way Initiative, MWI, which focuses on engagement with the Buddha's Middle Way teachings as a remedy to extreme thinking. Through Middle Way Initiative, Elizabeth offered programs including conversation with other teachers and guests, and the Open Question podcast. We have friends joining us from all over the world, including Australia, Brazil, Canada, the Czech Republic, Ecuador, Germany, Ireland, the Netherlands, Norway, Portugal, Singapore, South Africa, Switzerland, the United Kingdom, and the United States of America. Let us welcome Elizabeth and Jetsuma Tenzin Palmo and begin with the opening prayers. In the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly, I take refuge until enlightenment. By the merit of generosity and so forth, may I attain Buddhahood for the welfare of all beings. May all sentient beings enjoy happiness and the root of happiness. May they be free from suffering and the root of suffering. May they not be separated from the great happiness devoid of suffering. May they dwell in the great equanimity, free from passion, aggression, and prejudice. Welcome, Elizabeth and Jetsuma.
Thank you, Naja, and welcome, Jetsuma. We're thrilled to make this connection with you, and thank you for taking the time to be.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Thank you.
Jetsuma, I wanted to ask you one thing in the beginning. Do you remember that we met a long time ago?
A long time ago, and briefly.
And briefly, and I was trying to recall it because it was in a train station. And I can't even place it chronologically, but it was either in New York or in Europe. And we just happened to be buying a ticket at the same time. And then we went and had some tea. And I don't remember exactly where it was or when it was, but I remember the conversation. It's clear as day to me. And can I just tell you what I remember a little bit? So we talked a little bit about beer and Tashi Jong and, some of the people we knew, mutually know. And then, I told you a little bit about Kongtrul Rinpoche, and he was doing retreats and, some of his activities. And then you looked at me in a very fierce but caring way, and you said, "What about you?" And it was so, I don't know, heartwarming for me, or it felt so caring but very fierce. And I see it as clear as day still. That conversation we had was very impactful for me. So it's nice to see you again.
Well, I don't really remember it. I remember that we met, but that our paths never came together again until this evening. So that's nice.
Yeah. Yeah, it is nice. So yeah, I'm very happy. And I hear, our organization is the Middle Way Initiative. So we're committed to exploring teachings on the Middle Way, as Naja was saying, emptiness, dependent arising, prajna paramita. And this year we're focusing on bodhicitta. So I've heard you speak so beautifully about the paramitas on different podcasts, and I just wanted everyone to experience that. And so I thought I have 3 main questions. I thought we could kind of unpack together. Does that sound good?
As long as they're not what is emptiness, yes.
Okay, nothing on emptiness. Don't worry. That's a
Not
hard one.
emptiness.
That's a tall order always, right? Yeah, it's a tough topic. Well, the first question is going to be extremely easy, but it's very deep, I find. So in your book, which I just read to prepare, I also read Frida Beatty's book. Vicki McKenzie does the
Yeah.
very, very good author. Yeah. Anyways, this was an incredible book. Even though I've known about you, this was a whole different level of learning for me. And I enjoyed every minute. It was just outstanding. Anyway, in the book, I heard you, I read you talking about your earlier years when you were seeking a spiritual path that leads to perfection. The word perfection really pops out. So you're interested in what it means to be perfect. And I love that story of you going around and talking to people of different spiritual traditions. And I was wondering if you could just talk about that, because it gives a good idea of your earlier life, but also this word perfection is interesting. And I thought afterwards we could also look at that a little bit, because it's so juicy, that word.
No, well, I was just given a book by Taisita Rinpoche. Hold on 1 minute. It's a book which is called Being Ultimately Perfect.
Perfect.
So I have Taisita Rinpoche as my, okay, fair enough. Yeah, when I was a very small child, I remember really believing that we were all ultimately perfect, as Taisita Rinpoche says, we were all ultimately perfect, but somehow we had lost our connection with our true nature, and that we had to keep coming back again and again until we discovered our innate perfection. So the question was, what is perfection? And I mean, as you say, I went around, I asked my mother, I asked the priest, I asked teachers, I asked everybody who I thought might know something. In fact, my mother's a spiritualist, and we had seances every week, and I asked the spirit guides too. And everyone said, you have to be good. And some of them said, you have to be kind. Yeah. And even then, when I was very small, 4 or 5 years old, I thought, no, that's not it. Yes, of course we have to be good and kind, but I know people who are good and kind, but this is perfect. It's something else, something beyond all of that. Yeah. But I mean, then I started reading about different religions, but they were all focused on the idea of this creator God outside of ourselves who was pulling strings. And so indeed, it wasn't until I was 18 and I read a book on Buddhism that finally I understood that not only did the Buddha explain what it was to be perfect, but he showed a path, how to get to that level, which was beyond our ordinary conceptual thinking mind. So I was deeply grateful to the Buddha and immediately recognized that that's what I'd been searching for all this time. But this was London in the 1950s, before the hippie movement, right?
Yeah.
So
how extraordinary, though, to be so young and have that kind of insight. Do you think that you had the experience of perfect and that's what informed you? Like, sometimes I wonder, because if we are innately perfect, I mean, shouldn't we be having some perfect experiences just by default here and
some
there?
do.
Humans.
Some do. Yeah. And it can even lead them, since the experience is so powerful and upturns all our, previous way of identifying with life and with people and with ourselves. And nobody understands what on earth you're talking about in those days, right?
Yeah.
Many people had a lot of psychological problems because they inwardly knew that they were right. And yet everyone, including psychologists, were telling them that to think like that is crazy. And so that inner conflict stayed with them for a long, long time until they finally began to find books which identified exactly what they had experienced. And what a tremendous relief it was for them to recognize that far from being crazy, they actually were, small e, enlightened.
Yeah, yeah. Interesting. Wow. I've never thought of that before. How extraordinary then to be born in a culture that, affirms that or supports that, like in Tibet or, places where there's a greater understanding. I never thought of that. Like if you don't have the language and the support for that, then you might think something is quite off.
Well, people would think that something was quite off if you try to explain it.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I was very fortunate because my mother was very open-minded. And so when I explained what I was thinking to her, she said that sounded very sensible.
Sensible. Yeah, well, it really is ultimately sensible, I guess, too. But that's
so the point was that she didn't deride that. She thought that it's probably just how it was. So that was very fortunate, because if you're surrounded by people whom you respect and you're supposed to listen to, and they're all telling you you're wrong, when something inside you is telling you you're right and you're the only little voice, it must be psychologically extremely disturbing. Now, of course, everybody talks about enlightenment and samsara and nirvana. It's no longer a secret. But before, in the West, really, people didn't know.
Wow.
Really did not know.
It's very interesting. I never thought about that. My mom was a Buddhist, so she was quite supportive. I just felt always that she was always kind of affirming me or supporting me in that way. But that's very interesting. And it's so natural to who we are, Sometimes I even think too, nowadays, people often think of enlightenment or liberation as something still kind of divorced from, or a kind of highfalutin idea, like you hope to attain it someday. And it just becomes a little bit abstract for people as well. That becomes an obstacle whereas maybe they've had this simple experience of just being quite natural and having kind of a unfabricated experience. But not really notice it.
And not fireworks and bright lights. And
yeah.
Darlings.
Yeah, this is one thing in the book that popped out to me too, is when you emerged from retreat and everyone was kind of fascinated with what you had done, but they're curious about what happened to her internally. What happened to her inside through her practice, and maybe they had a lot of expectations about what it would be. And, they asked you, and of course you said, I think talking about enlightenment is quite, one's practice experience is quite intimate, and I don't really talk about it, which of course, is very important not to go around talking about that. But the one thing you did say is that it was quite bare, which I thought was really beautiful. Like, because, we think of bare not as barren, but unimpeded or unelaborated, unfabricated or something. You said that it's quite bare, like naked in the book.
Yeah, I mean, I think that one time I might, it said in the book, I don't know, I haven't read the book, so I don't know. But one time I was asking for a log, the oral transmission on the Dzogchen text, the Flight of the Garuda, by one of our yogis, one of our Tokdens. And halfway through, he closed the book. And he said the problem with these books are that they make it all sound so far and so amazing and so unattainable. And actually, there it is. And that was it, right? I mean, he just quietly gazed into the sky and said, that's it. And I think that that's very important to remember, that we always have it. We just don't recognize it.
Yeah. Again, it's innate to who we are.
Yeah. Well, we couldn't think, we couldn't, if we had no awareness, then, we're unconscious.
Yeah. This really comes through in the book.
Okay, good.
Yeah. If you didn't read it, I'll give the review. I never felt so kind of invigorated by reading about someone else's life. Like, I really enjoyed your life when I was reading, and I found it doesn't feel remote. Like, I didn't feel, of course, your accomplishments, the cave and all of that was very impressive, but I found it very encouraging and very like invigorating for me reading this book. And no nonsense.
You knew India because you had been living in Beer with the Choling family. And I mean, you understood the background from which it was all coming.
Yeah. Amazing. Can we talk a little bit more about perfect? I think because the word perfect has always been interesting to me. Sometimes perfect is like this projection we have on things. So we're looking for the perfect path or the perfect partner or even the perfect teacher. And I notice that it sometimes ends up being just our own expectation on someone or something, so that the responsibility is not on us. So I've noticed in the West, sometimes we have this idea of the perfect teacher. It's just an idea that we project out, and then the teacher does something that's a little disturbing or we don't understand. I mean, it's our projection that it's disturbing, or it could be disturbing. That's hard to say. But we hold someone else responsible for our well-being. And I think here, the perfect kind of has to do with how we are actually seeing something. It's our own, I think of prajnaparamita as that which sees like accurate perception or accurate discernment or clear seeing. So sometimes, I notice with students also, they tend to project out on the teacher, and then if the teacher does something they don't understand, they get upset at the teacher, or they internalize and think, I'm a bad student, rather than understanding that kind of clear seeing, that we're responsible for that part.
Yeah, I mean, the word that comes to my mind is simplicity. Because we all tend to, with the conceptual mind, make things so much more complicated and complex. And so it's more a sense of accumulating rather than letting go and just being without having to, I don't know. I mean, as you know, it's the state, even if it's only for a second, is beyond our conceptual thinking mind, and by its very nature is ineffable, and the more you talk about it, the farther you go away. But still, I think in my mind at that time, I had this feeling that this perfection, whatever it was outside of our normal expectations of what it was to be a religious person or a good person. It was something that was inherent and innate, and it just was our true nature. I really believe that very strongly, and I didn't know what it meant, but I knew that somehow this is what we'd lost, and that's why we had to keep coming back. I mean, even the idea that I thought believed in rebirth. Nobody else around me believed in rebirth. We're dealing with the 1940s and 50s.
Yeah.
So I didn't know what it was, but I kept looking in all the books that I could find, including Dostoevsky and all sorts of mystical writers really,
Yeah.
looking for a hint
Mm.
on what was this state of being that I felt we all, which we all had, but we couldn't see how to get, not only what was it, but how to get to it. And so, as I say, when I met with the Buddha Dharma, I was so intensely grateful to the Buddha, because he made such a clear path.
Mm-hmm.
Not, I mean, one you could really actually follow.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Buddha.
Yeah, thank you, Buddha. It's so amazing. It's so I'm still astounded. Like I just every time it's like every day I feel like I'm just at the tip of the iceberg, but the tip is so amazing, and then every day you discover more, and more. It's
Yes.
yeah. Once I told Kongtrumshe, he was teaching a Nagarjuna text on bodhicitta, and I told him that. I said, I just feel, I'm just getting to the surface, like like the tip of the iceberg. But it's so amazing. And he says, I feel the same way. He says, I feel the same way. Like there's so much depth to it that it just keeps opening and opening. So
Exactly.
it's so amazing. We're so fortunate. So fortunate.
We're
And it's
also fortunate. We're also fortunate, actually. I mean, that's the greatest blessing that life has, really.
yeah.
Is to meet with Mama and to have an interest. Because,
Yeah.
of course, many people, millions of people meet with the Dharma every day, born in Buddhist countries, but they don't necessarily, doesn't light something up in them that they feel they have to really bring this into their lives.
Yeah, yeah. And I love when in different places in the story while I was reading, like you would come upon, you came upon the path and you had complete certainty, and then the Tokens, and then you had complete certainty in that path, and that led to some other, things in your life that led you up to the cave and becoming a yogini and a practitioner. So it was just really joyful to watch that progression of your life. I really made me so happy. Anyway.
Yeah, somehow there was some karma there for sure. I always felt like I'm on a boat, a kind of, little boat. And I'm just sailing down the river and I'm not guiding the boat.
Yeah.
The boat knows where it's going and I just follow. And so here we are, really, stuck in a nunnery.
Yeah. It's wonderful. Okay, I have my second question now. I've heard you, I think it was on Dan Harris's, I don't know, this was way back, a podcast that you did with Dan Harris, and he asked you to talk about the perfections, the 6 perfections. And it was so clear and so beautiful, and that's where we are in our studies right now. And I was wondering if you could just speak about the 6 paramitas, what they are, why this is so important, and kind of in the context of the Bodhisattva path, why that's so important.
Well, I mean, of course, you can take it from many angles, yeah. But I think the 6 perfections are important because they take us out of just our idea that really to be a good Buddhist, you have to sit. And many people feel if they're not in retreat and they're back in their everyday life with their families and their jobs and their social obligations, that they're wasting time. And a lot of Tibetan texts talk like that, right?
Yeah.
The first thing you have to do is leave your fatherland and go off and then find a guru and then practice. And so the ordinary everyday life is looked down on as an inferior path, if it's a path at all. And I think that is, especially in this day and age where most people are not going to become monks and nuns and they're not going to be spending years in retreat, that they should appreciate how important so many of these qualities are which really need other people in order to be able to protect them.
Yeah.
So of course we start, you know, with generosity, because even if you can't do anything else, at least you can be, you know, you can be generous, not just with money and material things, but also with your time, with sharing dharma, which of course is the greatest gift, and so forth. And then ethics, which is really, really important in this day and age. Never to use your body, speech, or mind in a way which can harm anything or anyone.
Mm-hmm.
And then your patience, which of course is an enormous, the Lojong teachings. I'm so happy that nowadays so many people are actually studying Lojong, and so many books on Lojong are being printed, because it's so helpful for people to understand how to take the difficulties of life, the loss and sickness and difficult people, difficult situations, and use it as a path rather than seeing it as an obstacle to the path. Recognize that is the path, actually. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, you know, being having enthusiasm and energy, and meditation, yes, of course, especially learning how to become more clear, more aware, more present. All of that surrounded by wisdom of recognizing that it is the understanding of the essential empty nature of all of these qualities. Mm-hmm. I mean, you can go on about it for hours, but in general, the point is that we need these people to help us to practice. Mm-hmm. And of course, with kind heart and compassion, which are not mentioned, but are there. Mm-hmm. I mean, all these qualities which we you know, we need other people and difficult situations sometimes to perfect them, right? Without that, if everything is very easy and you're just always, when you're in retreat, then we feel fine, but the minute we go out, we fall flat on our face, then it wasn't very helpful.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, paramita are really, really extraordinary reminders that everything which we do, if we use our daily life as our spiritual practice, mm-hmm. then the Buddha was so wonderful, because he gave so many tools, right? He didn't just say be kind. He gave techniques for cultivating mm-hmm. how to be kind. Right? I mean, which are useful for anybody. It's not about being Buddhist. It's about being, you know, a good person and having a good heart.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think of these almost as like a healing path, because you're healing your relationship to the world you encounter, you know, that interdependence. It's such a beautiful and powerful thing. It's so, like you're saying, it's so doable and practical, and it fulfills all our wishes in a certain way, you know?
And it helps us to recognize that life does have a purpose.
Yeah, meaning.
Because mm-hmm. that's one of the main problems for people, is that their lives, they have outwardly gained so much, but mm-hmm. inwardly it all looks pretty meaningless.
Yeah.
And of course, living in India, I have people coming all the time from India itself and from all around the world, who are at that point in their life when they have accomplished all that the world tells you need to have to be, you know, a successful person. And they've got it all, and yet it is like, it's not only not enough, but it seems pretty futile. Mm-hmm. And then they think what to do. Mm-hmm. And then India flashes and they put everything aside and come to India looking for the truth.
Yeah.
It's not so easy. People think you can kind of pull a guru out of like a rabbit out of a hat, you know, but I mean, but anyway, the very idea that they know that they need to put another dimension to their lives is really very, very important.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, what I heard you, I remember in this interview that I listened to, you said that maybe there should be a seventh paramita, and that would be humor. And I was thinking about that because I love everything. I find things to be quite funny a lot of the time. But I think when I think of humor, I almost think of the sixth paramita of wisdom, because it's kind of seeing the irony of it all, and kind of
blows everything out.
Yeah. Right. But I love that you said like a seventh paramita, or that could be an aspect of, maybe we don't have to talk about emptiness, but we could just say that, the humor part, that it's like,
well, Westerners especially tend to take the kid all too seriously. That's what I meant.
Yeah.
And it's very intense and very serious. And when I think of the Tibetans, and especially the Lamas, one of the things you notice about them is how much they like to laugh.
Yeah.
No, yeah. I mean, they're samsara may be difficult, but they love to laugh, and it's right from their belly.
Yeah.
And they're not heavy and dour and pessimistic. Not at all.
Mm-hmm.
So that I think is important, that people, of course you should be sincere, naturally, but not too serious.
Yeah. Wonderful. Thank you. Well, so I have one more question. This is kind of has a couple parts to it. So, the one thing I took away from the book too is that you have, let's see, what's the word? A lot of verve. I think that's a very British word, right? Verve, like just a lot of like courage and enthusiasm to move forward. I felt that in you when I read this. So I like that quality. And a lot of, I don't know what to say, Ani Pema Trudon often uses the word chutzpah. Like
what?
chutzpah. It's a Yiddish, Yiddish word.
Yeah.
I was just, that's one, that's kind of the spirit. I feel that spirit in you because of just some of the things that happened. So there's one example from your book that I really, really appreciated. And that's when you were living you weren't living in the monastery, but you had gone to stay with your teacher. You couldn't live in the monastery, although you were a nun, because obviously your nuns don't live in a with the other monks. So you had to live alone. And so your teacher arranged for you to be educated by one Kempo who was telling you a lot of stories about the lineage and the Buddha. And, of course, I'm sure hearing about those stories were very inspiring, but you knew that you heard about the Tokdens, and you heard that there were female Tokdens, and that gave you kind of that again inspired you to want to go and really do the practice. So you had to confront your teacher, Komtrul Rinpoche, who you had great reverence and respect for, and say, I think I might have to leave because what I really need are these teachings so that I can go on to practice. And I thought that was very courageous. I think a lot of times, and I guess I'm speaking more about Dharma in the West, we don't insist that we get what we need. There's a kind of a passive quality, like in reverence for the Llama, but it's a little bit timid or meek in a certain way. And I felt like you were so clear, and you were able to ask for what you needed. And your Llama cared about you so much. Komtrul Rinpoche obviously cared about you so much and loved you so much. So he said, please just stay here. Don't leave. You'll get what you need. And of course you did. And then because you were able to receive the teachings, practical teachings for engaging retreat, you were able to go and do your retreat. And then later on, most likely that inspired you to found your nunnery, and so that other women could also be educated fully educated. And now you have this nunnery that that seems to be thriving. And so it was interesting to me, certain things in a book, they pop out at you. And that one moment popped out for me. That you had, you can be reverent and devotional, but you also sometimes have to stand up and say, this is what I need. You have to insist that you get what you need, and you trusted yourself. This was an important moment, I felt, in the book.
Well, I mean, the Llama is, the Llama is the Llama, what can you say? But obviously, also for them, towards the end, especially if I said to Rinpoche, well, what shall I do next? He would say, well, what do you want to do next? And then I would tell him what I thought. And either he would say, oh, that's a brilliant idea. Come back, I'll give you the wong tomorrow. Or else he would say, oh, you want to do that? In which I took to be, don't bother. So, I was very fortunate because at that time, as you know, the great lamas who had come from Tibet were still with us. And so therefore, and although there were more and more Westerners coming to meet these lamas, still they were very open and available. It's not like nowadays when every lama has hundreds and thousands of students and you hardly can see them. In those days, you could develop a one-on-one relationship. The problem for them was they weren't really quite sure what to teach foreigners, and we didn't really know what to ask for. But gradually, they began to understand what was helpful for us, and we began to understand likewise what we felt was, it took years before any of us ever heard about Mundro.
Yeah.
The preliminary practice, because they just couldn't. You mean you will actually do 100,000 prostrations? Yes, you have to. We will, they not just my own lamas, but other Westerners, their lamas the same. They just really didn't know what would be most beneficial for us. Yeah. And they were all very surprised when we agreed that we'd do
That's great. So you're educating them too.
Yeah, but they didn't know. They'd never met anyone quite like us before. They were very loving and kind and wanted to help us. But also there were almost no well-translated books at that time on Tibetan Buddhism.
Right.
And it was always very difficult to know exactly where we were going, right? Because it was, on the one hand, you had this kind of practice, but on the other hand, maybe just the very basic things we didn't know about. Mm-hmm. And so there were huge gaps in our understanding of the practice, which nowadays, of course, there are so many books.
Yeah.
And so many lamas out there on YouTube and whatever, all the social media, that people get confused.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a dharma supermarket, right? You just go, there's so much. Where do you start?
Yeah. Yeah, it's hard to know. Yeah.
Yeah. So in the beginning, we had the opposite. We had all the lamas there, very willing, but we didn't know what to ask for.
Huh. Very interesting. Yeah, very different time. You really had to plow the road for us. Thank you. Very, yeah. It must have been a fascinating time. It was.
Yeah. I don't think we really understood just how amazing it, now looking back, how amazing it was, because all the lamas were there and you could just see them any time. But language and ignorance slowed everything up a bit.
Mhm. Recently, you did a podcast with Marcia, our friend Marcia, and
Uh,
she was talking about, because she's been around for a while, and she was very close with Tukurgan Rinpoche and also spent so much time with him. And she asked you, well, what about the students who are around now and they don't have as much contact with the teacher? And I thought your response was very interesting. You said, yeah, you kind of turned it back on themselves and said, it really has to do with the dharma and how much one practices, because sometimes you could just rely on the Llama, but actually not really do your practice seriously too. I mean, there is that pitfall that could come from just, hanging out with the teacher, but the practice is really where one matures. Could you say a little more about that? Because some
well, it's something which it comes up more and more. As I say, many people come and one of their questions is, okay, they've done, like a 10-day introduction course in Dharamshala. They're all geared up and fine. Now, all I need is a teacher to guide me on the path. So where do I find? And of course, you can't say, oh, yes, you should go to this one or that one, because, different people, are attracted by different things. And also because the teachers who probably are best at teaching Westerners are also the ones who are the most popular and therefore have hundreds, if not thousands of students. So how do you get that one-on-one, which people, especially in the West, have this idea, the guru is just waiting for you. So I say, look, in the meantime, yes, go do courses. Now there are more and more courses being given by, not by big lamas, but by people who have nonetheless, had many years of practice. And get yourself ready, especially do some, study basic Buddha Dharma, and also maybe do some shamatha practice to get your mind in some kind of state of being. You can also nowadays, so many teachers on YouTube and whatever, so many very good books are now out there. Get yourself ready. And, if you were meeting a college professor, he would at least expect that you know how to read and write. Right? So you can do that for yourself. You don't need a high-powered Lama to teach you how to, look at the breath and look at the mind. And then, even when you're really ready, and pray hard to the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, that each step of the way you may find the necessary guidance that you need. Might not come from some, Buddha sitting on a high throne wearing a hat, but it might be just something you read in a book or somebody made a comment and it clicks and it's clear what you need to do next. And I think that I said also really that if you consider Tibet, even most people couldn't read and write, right? So that's out. They weren't reading. But even in a monastery, and here, today the same, our nuns in the monastery of Tashijong down the road, they all have tremendous devotion to come to Rinpoche, but they don't know come to Rinpoche. They would never go and just talk to him. Maybe if somebody in the family died, they would ask for some prayers, but they would never dream of just sitting down there telling him, their life story and what practices they've done and seeking his advice, because you didn't. Tukus hang out with tukus and maybe kempos, but they don't with the ordinary monks. And if the ordinary monks were really keen on practice, they would go to another monk, a senior monk who had done practice, and get guidance from him. They might visualize the root guru in their heart, but they would get ordinary teachings on what to do and where to go from somebody at a much lower scale who, wasn't famous at all. And today you can do that too. That's the thing, that yes, you can have great devotion to the Dalai Lama or Tai Situ or anybody, but you can also go to practitioners who have done the practice, but are not considered, sort of, sitting up on thrones and carrying out that role. Mm-hmm. So, really people have nowadays to, I think, a little bit get over their hang-ups about finding the perfect guru and just start practicing sincerely. Yeah. And then the teachings will come to you as you need them. I'm sure of that. If you are sincere in your practice, the dharma will take care.
Mm-hmm. That's really valuable guidance. I feel what you just said. I think it will be helpful for a lot of people to hear that. And, my teacher also, I always feel, he's always throwing it back on us as a students. He wrote a book called It's Up to You. And once I asked him, what does it mean? I think I was asking him, what does it mean to be a good student? And how about the teacher-student relationship, and he said to me, it really has very little to do with me. Of course, it has a lot to do with him in terms of receiving the instructions and so forth, but it really, I feel we have to have a strong sense of agency and really make sure it happens, and really see why we're not working hard and being diligent with our practice and what's at stake. There's so much at stake, and this is such an amazing opportunity that we have met the Dharma, and it's so transformative. And as you said, things like Lojong or the practice, the Bodhisattva's way of life, these are really doable things within our reach. We can really do this, So that's why my organization that I started with Rinpoche's encouragement really has to do more with also that Mahayana teachings and the power of that, because I love them so much also, and I feel like that's something I can do. I always have enthusiasm at the very least, for these teachings. So anyways, I thank you for saying what you just said. I think it's just so helpful. And I just have one other thing that I would like to ask you, and I would love it if you would describe your nunnery. What happened? What do the nuns learn? What does it look like? Anything you want to say about this, we want to hear. We're curious and want to know more about it.
Okay, so about 27 years ago, I was in our monastery, in the monastic and lay community of Tashijong, which you know. And they had a meeting of the lamas, Adu Rinpoche and Sokni Rinpoche and Chugo Rinpoche, as well as Kampu Rinpoche, many lamas. And so they said to me, look, we don't have anything for the women, so we'd like you to start a nunnery. And I really I knew, yes, this is what I have to do, because the previous consul had also said, I want you to start a nunnery. And I realized if I didn't do it, nobody else was going to. So anyway, to cut a long story short on that one, I started, therefore, traveling all around the world and giving Dharma talks, but also mentioning that we were starting a nunnery. And the response mostly was, nuns? Oh, nobody's ever mentioned nuns. Oh, Llama talks about his monastery, never mentioned nuns. And I said, yeah, well, that's the problem, right? And why nuns are living in cow sheds. Anyway, I handed it all over to Tara, because I had no idea how to even begin, because you can't give talks if nobody invites you to give the talks. And I wasn't Tibetan, I wasn't a Lama. And anyway, so I just handed it all over to Arya Tara and said, okay, lady, if you want this nunnery, you do it. And I'll be the front person, but you're the one that's got to get it together. So she did. And now we have a nunnery. It's about 10 minutes from the monastery of Tashijong. And we have about 120 nuns. Mostly, as with all the monasteries nowadays, they are from the border regions. They're not. We do have some Tibetans who came from Tibet, but the majority are from Ladakh and Kinnoor and Lahore and all the border regions, Nepal. They have a 12-year study program of Buddhist philosophy. And they also do ritual. Every day they do in the morning Tara Puja and half an hour Shini Shamatha meditation. And then in the evening they do Mahakala and Chirp. And then 4 times a month they do long 4-hour pujas for Guru Rinpoche and Vajrayana and so forth. And so they're very, at the moment they're in exams. So they're all walking around from 5 in the morning with books open, it's exam time. Then in June, they have a holiday and they can go home if they want. And then in July or August, they do a silent retreat. They actually keep quiet for 2 months, apart from chanting. And we lock the front gate so people can't come in. And they do a 2-month retreat. Then in September, we start again the new academic year. So we also have a retreat center, and 4 of our nuns have been in retreat now for 16 years and have been officially recognized as Tokdenma. They now wear Tokden.
Oh, wow.
Yes, well, we had a jubilee last year, our 25th anniversary. And one of the senior Tokdens gave robes from Kamsa Rinpoche to these 4 nuns.
And they have the hair and everything.
Well, they don't actually have dreadlocks, but they do have long hair. And they usually put them up in a bun.
Wow.
We have 15 nuns in the moment in retreat, and they usually do a 3-year retreat and then have a little break and then go back and do another 3-year retreat. So they're very devoted, and they're great fun. I go and see them every 2 weeks just to see how they're getting on. And I have to say, they're very jolly, which I always think is a good sign, right? They laugh a lot.
The 7th part.
So people like the nunnery. They think it's very beautiful. Many say it's the most beautiful nunnery they've seen. I wouldn't say that, but they do like it. It's very peaceful, and lots of green and grass and flowers and trees, and it's very pretty. And our temple, when the artists were about to do the temple, I said, look, I'm tired of going into nunnery temples and all the figures of enlightenment are male. What kind of message is that giving them to the nuns? So they got that. They really did. And so most of the figures in the nunnery on the walls are females, like the 21 Taras, and then they had 2 panels of all the early nuns, and then Machi Glapteran, and anyway, they came across as many females as they could find. And so it's a very feminine. Everybody feels, I mean, I live here, so I don't really notice it, but people who just come from Darmstadt or from Beer, they say, wow, it's such a different atmosphere because it's so feminine. And even the men like it. In fact, I've had 2 Tibetan monks who have told me that they are praying to come back as a female in the next life in order to join the nunnery.
That's fantastic.
No, I'm really but not just our nunnery. All nunneries now are really on the up and up because of education.
Yeah.
We have Kenmos now. The male, they don't have Geshe-Geshe-mas, but they have Khenpos and Kenmos. So we have 4 Kenmos who teach. And now, as I say, these 4 Tokden Ma. And then at the end of this year, in November, 60 of our nuns, the senior nuns, are going to Bhutan to take full ordination to become Bhikshuni.
In Bhutan, you said?
Yes, from the J Khenpo. His son is the J Khenpo, who is the head of the monastic order in Bhutan.
How amazing.
Yes, it is amazing
so
because all
amazing.
this, they've never done, that's the one that's real, hitting your head against the wall.
Yeah.
The full ordination for nuns.
Yes. And you were one of those rare early examples of someone who actually.
Yeah, but to bring it into the Tibetan lineage, that's always been a challenge.
Mm-hmm.
So now the Je Khenpo of Bhutan had said, enough of talking about it, we should do it.
Yeah.
So he did it with about 140 nuns, and now he's doing it again. And finally, our nuns, because the Khenpos and Rinpoche and everybody are encouraging them, they have said, okay, let's do it. So it's very good. We're very happy about that.
Wow.
So then they have everything. That's the point.
Yeah.
And our monastery of Kampaga in Tashijong are wonderful and so supportive and have taught the nuns everything they know. And they're a great lot. So it's like having a family also from the nuns,
Yeah. Wow.
Dharma brothers down the road.
Wow. What a wonderful story. And
You should come. Surely you come to Beer sometime.
I will. I haven't been there for a while. I was just in India, but I just went to Bodh Gaya. But I realized, I wasn't so aware that the nunnery was so close. And next time I come to Beer, I'll try to come not when they're in their retreat. I would love to come, and I will come. That's
Please
an
come.
now.
Please come.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I would love to. Yeah. Well, you've just, how could I not after what you've just said? It just sounds so uplifted and so, it feels so joyful just hearing about it. Thank you for doing that.
Nuns are coming. Nuns are coming up, not just me, but all nunneries now are really, really, they're studying, they're practicing, and of course, they keep perfect ethical conduct. And and also, to be honest, like Dharamshala, which is about 2 hours from us, nowadays when they have meetings with all the big lamas and so forth, they also invite nuns from all the monasteries, and they expect the nuns to speak.
Good.
Not as audience, you've got to speak. And so that's really good that now they're recognizing that women are actually quite intelligent.
Oh my goodness, that's amazing. I'm so happy to just hear all of this. Even though I knew it was flourishing, it's still so nice to hear about it. Jetsuma, I want to respect your time. We're at the end of the hour, and but I'm so grateful, and I appreciate you so much, and I think we all do. As an example, we need examples, and you have so much experience, and so
we also have to think now about non-Himalayan nuns, right? All these Westerners and mainland Indians and other Asians who take ordination in the Tibetan tradition, but unlike the Himalayan nuns were doing quite well. They have no support, and apart from the Sravasti Adi, mostly they are on their own, and it's hard for them too. It's hard for them.
Yeah, we have Pema children established it's not a nunnery, but there's a home here, a couple miles from me. Then some, about 5 or 6 nuns stay in this home.
Good.
We actually have that here. Yeah.
Yeah, we need to give some thought to our own. It's the first time that, native-born monks and nuns have not been supported automatically by lay people.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or appreciated for that matter.
Yeah. Okay, we're going to keep that in mind. Thank you so much. I think
lovely to see you, Elizabeth. Really,
lovely to see you.
Please come.
Yes, I will. Now it's really aspiration is there. Thank you so much. I will. I can't wait to come, actually. So, yeah.
Well, best wishes to Rinpoche too.
Yes.
When he was a little boy.
Yeah, I bet you do. Yeah, thank you so much. And I'm going to have Naja is so kindly going to lead us in the dedication, and then we'll just close it up.
Dear Jetsunma Tenzin Palmo and Elizabeth Mattis Namgyel, please accept our deepest gratitude for your profound and illuminating conversation on the perfection of wisdom. Your insights offered immense clarity and inspiration. We are truly grateful for the wisdom you so generously shared. Thank you. So shall we do the closing prayers? By this merit, may all attain omniscience, may he defeat the enemy wrongdoing, from the stormy waves of birth, old age, sickness, and death, from the ocean of samsara, may I free all beings.
Thank you all. Thank you very much.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Stay well, Jetsuma. Stay well.
Yeah, we're okay. Tomorrow I'm off to Singapore, China, and Sarawak. How come you never come to the Sakidita conferences?
I don't know. I don't know if I are those. I have heard of those. I don't know. Maybe I wasn't invited.
They're fantastic.
Oh,
They are
really?
fantastic because they're completely non, no kind of biases. People come from everywhere: Thailand, Burma, Sri Lanka, Vietnam, Korea, Japan, China, and the Himalayas. And they're everybody. I mean, it's run by women for women, right? It's Sakya Dita, meaning like daughters of the Buddha. And everybody comes together and joins together and laughs. It's very different from a male conference. Everybody hugs each other and laughs, right?
Oh, I love
And
that.
so-
I'm going to come then. I do. Can anybody just go? I think I was invited a long time ago. Yeah. I don't know.
Every 2 years it's held in a different Buddhist country. Last year was, the year before last was Korea. And 6,000 people came. I mean, it was extraordinary.
Wow. Okay.
And men come too, a few, but they love it, right? Because it's not anti-male; it's just pro-female.
Yeah.
And so they really have a great time too. And so really, come on, girls, you should come support the
Okay.
lady.
Okay. Now I have two things I need to do. Thank you. Stay well. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. So if you wish to offer a teacher's gift, offering details are in the chat. Elizabeth requests that you give any teacher offering to Jetsuma Tenzin Palmo's nunnery. Information on how to donate is on the Namgyel Getsa link, djli.org website. Also, please consider supporting the Middle Way Initiative so that we may continue to offer this type of event. We turn no one away for lack of funds, so you'll find information on the Middle Way Initiative giving webpage at middlewayinitiative.org. We appreciate your generosity. I have some announcements to make. So as a great benefit to all, the recordings for this event will be made available for free to everyone who is interested in watching this conversation between Elizabeth Mattis Namgyel and Jetsuma Tenzin Palmo. Please visit the Middle Way Initiative website for information about Elizabeth's upcoming teachings and all the episodes of the Open Question podcast series. You'll find a link to subscribe to our newsletter to receive updates on Elizabeth's upcoming teachings events. Thank you to all of you who have joined us today. We look forward to seeing you again. Goodbye.